The last words my sister said to me were, "I hope you suffer." She said them standing in the doorway of our childhood home in Portland, Oregon, her face twisted with something I couldn't name. Rage, maybe, or triumph. Behind her, movers were carrying out boxes labeled in her neat handwriting. My mother's china, my grandmother's quilts, the antique desk where I'd done my homework while she painted her nails and ignored me. Everything that had mattered, reduced to cardboard and packing tape. "Take it," I'd said, my voice hollow. "Take everything." And she smiled. God, she smiled like she'd won something. Like my surrender was the prize she'd been fighting for all along. I remember the way the afternoon light caught her dark curls, making them shine copper and gold. She'd always been beautiful in ways I wasn't. All warmth and curves where I was angles and ice. People gravitated to her. They tolerated me. "I mean it, Caroline," she said, her voice steady, deliberate. Each word chosen carefully, like stones placed to mark a grave. "I hope you wake up one day and feel what I've felt. I hope you reach for someone who isn't there. I hope you understand what it's like to love someone who doesn't know how to love you back." I should have said something. Anything. But I stood there silent, watching the movers load the last of our shared history into a truck, and let her hatred wash over me like rain. That was 6 months ago. 6 months of silence that felt like relief. I didn't go to her funeral 3 weeks ago. I told myself it was because I had a deadline at the architecture firm, because traffic from Seattle down to Portland would be impossible on a Friday, because what was the point of saying goodbye to someone who'd hated me for 37 years? What would I even say to a coffin? Sorry I wasn't who you needed. Sorry I couldn't be fixed. But the truth sat heavier in my chest. A stone I carried through my days. I was relieved she was gone. Relieved I wouldn't have to navigate her expectations anymore. Wouldn't have to feel inadequate every time her name appeared on my phone. Wouldn't have to be reminded that I was fundamentally broken in ways that disappointed the people who loved me. The call came from her landlord on a Wednesday afternoon. I was in a client meeting, presenting designs for a downtown high-rise, when my phone buzzed. I ignored it. It buzzed again, and again. Finally, I excused myself, irritation prickling at my professional composure. "Ms. Walsh, this is Mike Chen. I'm your sister's landlord." His voice was nervous, apologetic. "I found your number in her emergency contacts. I'm so sorry to tell you this, but your sister, there's been an incident." An incident. I repeated the word, tasting its careful vagueness. "She passed away 2 days ago. A brain aneurysm. The medical examiner said it was quick. She wouldn't have suffered." The irony of that word, suffered, hit me like a fist. I stood in the Morrison and Webb hallway, phone pressed to my ear, and felt nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just a strange, hollow calm. "Ms. Walsh, are you there?" "Yes, I'm here. There are belongings to collect. Papers to sign. The lease needs to be settled by the end of the month, and I didn't know who else to call. Of course, I'll handle it. Because that's what I did. I handled things." I drove down on a Thursday morning, the Portland sky gray and pressing, heavy with rain that hadn't fallen yet. I'd called in sick to work, the first time I'd done so in 3 years. My assistant had sounded concerned. "Take all the time you need," she'd said, as if I needed time to grieve a sister I'd barely spoken to in 6 months. Her apartment was in the Pearl District, a renovated industrial building with exposed brick, and those massive windows that architects loved and regular people could never afford. The rent would have been astronomical. How did she afford this on a gallery assistant's salary? But then, Natalie had always had secrets, always had ways of managing things she never explained to me. Mike met me in the lobby, a small man in his 50s with kind eyes. "I'm sorry for your loss," he said, handing me keys that felt absurdly heavy. She was a good tenant, quiet, always paid on time. I didn't know anything was wrong until... "It's fine," I said, cutting him off. I didn't need the details. Didn't want to imagine her alone, clutching her head, calling for help that never came. "Which floor?" "4th. Number 412. The apartment smelled like her. Jasmine perfume and turpentine, coffee and something acrid I couldn't place. Paint thinner, maybe, or the chemical scent of art supplies. Her paintings covered every wall, abstract storms of color that art critics called visceral and haunting. I called them angry. Everything she touched carried anger, even beauty, especially beauty. There was a self-portrait over the couch, rendered in slashing brushstrokes of crimson and black, her face emerging from chaos, eyes defiant. It was titled, Sister. I turned away from it. Mike had left a box on the kitchen counter. Personal items, the label read in his careful handwriting. Found by her bed. Inside, receipts from coffee shops and art supply stores. A jade bracelet I'd given her for her 16th birthday, the one I'd thought she'd thrown away in anger during one of our fights. A stack of photographs, mostly of people I didn't recognize, friends from a life I'd never bothered to learn about. And beneath them, bound in cracked brown leather, worn smooth from years of handling, a diary. I almost left it there, almost put everything back in the box and walked away, dealt with the practical matters and nothing more. But my hands, traitors that they were, opened it to the first page before my brain could object. The date was written in careful, childish handwriting. January 3rd, 1993. Natalie would have been 7. I would have been 10. I'm 7 years old and I hate that I love her. My breath caught. I flipped forward, then backward, pages crackling under my fingers. The diary wasn't just a few entries, it was decades. Hundreds of pages, filled with her small, neat handwriting. The last entry was dated 2 days before she died, the ink still sharp and dark. She'll never know I spent my whole life wishing she'd look at me the way she looks at her blueprints, like I was something worth building, like I was a project she wanted to complete. I sat on her floor, expensive hardwood cold beneath me, the diary heavy in my lap, the world tilted sideways. Every fight we'd had replayed in my mind, but different now, lit from new angles. Every cruel word, every slammed door, every ignored phone call suddenly cast different shadows. The movers taking the house, her bitter smile, her final curse, I hope you suffer. All of it crystallized into a single, devastating truth I'd been too blind to see. She'd wanted me to love her. She'd spent 37 years wanting something from me that I didn't know how to give, and I'd never even known I hadn't. My name is Caroline Walsh. I'm 42 years old, a senior partner at Morrison & Webb Architects in Seattle. I design buildings that win awards, sleek towers of glass and steel that reshape skylines. My office overlooks Elliott Bay. My apartment is minimalist, all clean lines and neutral colors. I have a housekeeper who comes Tuesdays and Thursdays. I eat salads for lunch at my desk. I run 5 miles every morning at 5:30 before the sun rises. People call me focused, driven, successful, cold, probably, though they don't say it to my face. I've been divorced for 6 years. David, my ex-husband, was a structural engineer. We made sense on paper, compatible schedules, shared interests in design, no children to complicate things. The marriage lasted 3 years. He left me for a woman from his office who knew how to be present. I signed the papers without contest, divided our assets with surgical precision, and moved on. That's what I do. I move on. Natalie was 3 years younger, all wild dark curls where mine was straight and blonde, all passion where I was precision. She painted with her whole body, music blasting, colors everywhere. I'd find paint on her clothes, in her hair, under her fingernails. She dated musicians and poets, and once, memorably, a fire dancer named Phoenix, who set our mother's curtains ablaze during Thanksgiving dinner in 2003. He was demonstrating, Natalie had said, laughing even as Mom frantically beat out flames with a dish towel. It's performance art. It's a fire hazard, I'd replied, already calculating the cost of replacement curtains. We grew up in a craftsman house in Portland's Laurelhurst neighborhood, a 3-bedroom with a porch swing and a maple tree out front that blazed gold every October. Our mother, Ellen Walsh, worked double shifts as an ICU nurse at Providence Portland Medical Center. She'd come home exhausted, smelling of antiseptic and hospital coffee, and still managed to make us birthday cakes from scratch, help with homework, tuck us in with stories. Our father left when I was 5, and Natalie was 2. I have scattered memories. His laughter, the way he'd toss me in the air, the smell of his aftershave. Then one day, he was gone, and Mom sat us down and explained in her calm nurse voice that sometimes people couldn't stay, but it wasn't our fault. I accepted this, processed it as a fact, like learning that rain falls down or winter follows fall. Natalie, though she claimed not to remember him, would sometimes stare at his photograph, the one Mom kept on the mantle, with something raw and hungry in her eyes. I caught her once when she was 12, tracing his face with her finger, whispering something I couldn't hear. "He's not coming back," I told her. "There's no point dwelling on it." She turned to me with tears streaming. "Don't you ever miss him? Don't you ever wonder why?" "No," I'd said, which was true. I'd learned early that wondering was just another word for wasting time. Mom died when I was 28, Natalie 25. Ovarian cancer, stage 4 by the time they found it. 6 months from diagnosis to death, each week stealing more of her. First her energy, then her appetite, then her ability to walk, then finally her consciousness. I was in graduate school at MIT, working on my thesis and interning at a prestigious firm in Boston. I flew home every other weekend that last year, managing hospice schedules and insurance claims, organizing her medications, meeting with lawyers about her will. I approached her death the way I approached everything, with spreadsheets and schedules, with tasks that could be completed and checked off. Natalie took a leave from her job at the coffee shop and moved back into the house. She sat by Mom's bed for hours, reading poetry aloud, playing her favorite music, painting pictures that Mom was too weak to see clearly, but claimed to love anyway. "You should be here more," Natalie said to me once, her voice sharp with exhaustion and anger. "I'm doing everything I can from Boston," I replied. "Someone needs to handle the practical matters. Someone needs to hold her hand. You're holding her hand. I'm making sure she's taken care of." But taken care of meant different things to each of us, and neither of us recognized that both were necessary. The funeral was in April, cherry blossoms falling like snow. 300 people came. Nurses from Providence, neighbors, friends from Mom's book club, people whose children she'd mentored, patients whose hands she'd held. They told stories about her kindness, her humor, her strength. "Your mother saved my son's life," one woman said to me. "Advocated for him when the doctors wanted to give up. She was extraordinary." I nodded, accepting condolences with appropriate phrases. "Thank you. She would appreciate that. We'll miss her terribly." But I didn't cry. Couldn't cry. Grief sat in my chest like concrete, solid and unmovable, refusing to liquefy into tears. Natalie cried enough for both of us, sobbing through the service, collapsing at the graveside, held up by friends I'd never met. After, she avoided me. When I tried to talk to her about estate matters, she turned away. "Not now, Caroline. Jesus. Can it wait 5 fucking minutes?" It could wait, but I didn't know what else to do besides handle things. So I kept trying to handle them, kept pushing paperwork and decisions at her, kept trying to organize our grief into manageable pieces. After the funeral, we divided the house contents. I was methodical, kept important documents, Mom's jewelry, the photographs that mattered. Natalie wanted the sentimental things. Mom's apron with the stain from when we'd made strawberry jam together, her favorite mug with the chipped handle, the radio she'd danced to while cooking Sunday dinners. But then Natalie asked for the house itself. "I can't afford to keep it," I'd said. "Property taxes alone are $12,000 a year and it needs work. The roof, the foundation, the plumbing. We'd be hemorrhaging money. Then sell it to me. I'll get a loan. Figure something out." I'd looked at her, 25 years old, working minimum wage at a coffee shop, living on tips and dreams, and felt something close to pity. "Be realistic, Natalie. No bank will give you a mortgage. You have no credit history, no stable income, no down payment. So I'm not responsible enough?" Her voice had gone quiet, dangerous. "Not worthy enough?" "That's not what I said. It's what you meant. It's always what you mean. That I'm not like you, not put together or successful or practical. Just a screw-up wasting her life on art nobody cares about." "I never said that. You don't have to say it. It's in every look, every suggestion that I should have a backup plan, every time you ask when I'm going to get a real job." I'd been trying to help, trying to protect her from disappointment, from the brutal reality that art careers rarely paid bills. But she'd heard something else entirely. I sold the house to developers for $400,000. We split it evenly. They tore it down 3 months later and built a modern duplex, all sharp angles and floor-to-ceiling windows. Nothing like the home we'd grown up in. Natalie didn't speak to me for 2 years after that. When she finally called, it was to invite me to her first gallery showing. I went, proud despite everything, despite the silence between us. The gallery was small, in Southeast Portland, the kind of space with exposed brick and wine in plastic cups. Her paintings were powerful, angry and beautiful, raw with emotion I didn't understand. Strangers praised them, bought them, asked intelligent questions about her process and inspiration. And Natalie glowed, radiant in a way I'd never seen her, surrounded by people who understood her language. I tried to congratulate her, walked up during a quiet moment, said, "These are really impressive. You're very talented." She'd looked at me with something like sadness. "Thanks for coming, Caroline." Then turned back to a collector, dismissing me as easily as she'd dismiss a stranger. That pattern repeated for years. Long silences punctuated by tense holidays, and brief phone calls about logistics. I told myself it was her problem, her inability to move forward, her dramatic nature making mountains from molehills. I was the reasonable one, the adult, the one who'd moved on from grief and built a successful life. But reading her diary now, seeing my name on every other page, I wondered if moving on was just another way of saying I'd never let myself feel anything at all. The week after Mom's funeral, I'd done what I always did, organized, made lists, contacted lawyers and accountants, insurance companies in the funeral home, reviewed Mom's will, her assets, her debts, created a spreadsheet of tasks with deadlines and responsible parties. Structure helped. Structure made sense of chaos. Mom left everything split evenly between us, which meant I needed Natalie's signature on approximately 40 documents. Power of attorney transfers, bank account closures, insurance claims, the deed transfer, each one requiring notarization, witnesses, proper filing. I made copies, organized them by urgency, color-coded them for clarity, drove to the house, our house, though it already felt like a museum of someone else's life, on a Tuesday afternoon. Natalie was still staying there, sleeping in her childhood room, leaving paintings propped against the hallway walls. The house felt wrong with Mom gone. Too quiet, too empty, like a body with no heartbeat. Her reading glasses still sat on the side table, her slippers by the door. The afghan she'd been crocheting draped over the couch, half finished, the yarn still attached as if she might walk in and pick it up again. I found Natalie in the kitchen making coffee, still in pajamas at 2 p.m. Her eyes were swollen, ringed with shadows. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, which she probably hadn't. "We need to talk about the estate," I said, setting my briefcase on the table. She poured 2 cups without asking if I wanted one. Black for me, cream and sugar for her. She remembered, even then, even in grief. "Can it wait? The lawyers need these filed within 60 days. Mom's been dead for 8 days, which gives us 52 days to handle this. It's better to start now, get ahead of deadlines." She set my cup down harder than necessary, coffee sloshing onto Mom's daisy-patterned tablecloth, the same tablecloth we'd eaten breakfast at for 20 years. I almost told her to be careful, then swallowed the words. "Of course," she said, her voice flat. "Heaven forbid we fall behind on paperwork." I pulled out the folder, ignoring her tone. "I've organized everything by priority. The insurance claims are time-sensitive, so those first. Then the bank accounts. The house and property transfers can wait until... You're already planning to sell it, aren't you?" She wasn't looking at me, was staring into her coffee like she could read something there. The house. The question shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. "We need to discuss it." "That's not an answer," I sighed, pulling out my phone, bringing up the notes I'd made. "I've been reviewing the financials. The property taxes are $12,000 a year. The house needs a new roof. That's at least $20,000. The foundation has cracks, which could be $10,000 to $30,000 depending on severity. The plumbing is 50 years old and should be replaced. The electrical needs updating to code. So you're saying it's too expensive to keep?" "I'm saying we'd be looking at $60,000 to $80,000 in immediate repairs, plus ongoing maintenance and taxes. Neither of us has that kind of liquid capital, and taking out a loan against a property this old doesn't make financial sense when we could just sell it and take the money." The way she said money made it sound dirty, made me sound greedy. "It's not about the money. It's about being practical." There's that word again, practical. She laughed, bitter and sharp. "Do you know that was one of the last things Mom said to me? She said, 'Natalie, your sister loves you.' She just shows it practically. Like that was supposed to make me feel better about you not being here." The words hit like slaps. "That's not fair. I was here as much as I could be. You were here every other weekend, 2 days out of 14. Do the math, Caroline. You're good at math." I was in school, building a career so I could support who? Her voice rose. You sent checks. You sent money. Like that's the same as being here. Like you could just wire transfer your way out of actually showing up. I did what I could. I arranged her care, handled her insurance, made sure she had everything she needed medically. She needed her daughter. Natalie slammed her mug down, coffee spraying across the table, soaking the papers I'd so carefully organized. She needed someone to hold her hand and tell her it was okay to be scared. She needed someone to cry with, not someone to manage her dying like it was a project with deliverables. I grabbed napkins, started blotting the coffee, saving the documents, always fixing, always handling. I was doing my best. Your best was a phone call every Tuesday at 7 p.m. that lasted exactly 20 minutes. Your best was coordinating hospice schedules and medication delivery. Your best was never, not once, just sitting with her doing nothing, just being there. And what did just being there accomplish? Did it cure her cancer? Did it pay her medical bills? It meant she wasn't alone. Natalie's voice cracked. It meant that when she woke up scared in the middle of the night, someone who loved her was there. It meant she got to talk about her garden and her memories and all the little things that mattered to her without someone trying to optimize her pain away. I straightened the papers, my hands shaking. I'm sorry my way of helping wasn't emotional enough for you. It's not about emotion, Caroline. It's about presence. It's about showing up even when there's nothing to fix, especially when there's nothing to fix. Silence fell between us, heavy and thick. Outside, a bird sang, oblivious to the way we were dismantling each other. So the house, Natalie said finally, her voice empty now, all the fight drained out. You want to sell it. I think it's the most sensible option. Sensible. She nodded slowly. What if I wanted to live here? Keep it? With what money, Natalie? The question came out harsher than I intended. You make minimum wage plus tips. You have no savings, no credit history. No bank will give you a mortgage. So I'm too irresponsible. Too much of a fuck-up. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. She stood, her chair scraping loud against the linoleum. You're right. I'm 25. I work at a coffee shop. I paint pictures nobody buys. I'm not successful like you. Not put together, not practical. Natalie, this house is all I have left of her. All I have left of us. Of being a family. But you see it as an asset to liquidate. So go ahead. Sell it. Turn Mom's home into market value. I'm sure you'll get a great return on investment. She walked out, leaving me alone in the kitchen with my coffee-stained paperwork and my careful plans. I told myself she was being emotional, irrational, that grief was making her lash out at the nearest target. I told myself I was helping, doing the responsible thing, the mature thing. I never let myself consider that maybe she was right. Her diary from that week. Caroline came with papers and plans and that look she gets when she's managing a problem. Not once did she ask if I was okay. Not once did she cry. I don't think she knows how anymore. And the worst part is, I still wanted her to hold me like she did when we were kids and I had nightmares. But she's made of blueprints now, not bones. She's all right angles and no soft places to land. The diary pulled me backward through time, through entries that rewrote everything I thought I knew about us, about myself. September 1997. I'm 11. Caroline's 14th birthday. Mom made her a cake. Chocolate with vanilla frosting, her favorite. Caroline spent the whole party on the phone with her friend Rachel, talking about some science competition. I drew her a picture. Took me 3 days. Used every colored pencil I had. It was of us, holding hands under a rainbow. She said thanks and put it on the fridge upside down. Didn't even look at it. I cried in my room after everyone left. Mom came in and said Caroline just has a lot on her mind. But I think the truth is, I'm not on her mind at all. I remembered that birthday. Remembered Rachel calling about our project results. We'd won regional finals, would advance to state. I'd been so excited, so focused on that validation. I didn't remember a picture, but I remembered Natalie, always underfoot, always trying to show me things. Drawings, stories, treasures found in the backyard. I'd been so busy then, so focused on grades and achievements, on building the foundation of who I wanted to become. Every moment spent with my little sister felt like time stolen from my future, from the person I was desperately trying to be. November 1999, Thanksgiving. Caroline's home from her first semester at Stanford. She looks so grown up, so confident, like she's already left us behind even though she just left 3 months ago. I asked if she missed us and she said, "Of course," but she said it like she was answering a math problem, like the correct response was obvious but not felt. I think she's happier there than she ever was here. I think we were always too small for her. She wasn't wrong. Stanford had been freedom, a place where ambition was praised, not questioned, where my drive was an asset, not a flaw. I'd called home every Sunday, sent care packages with books I thought Natalie should read, forwarded funny emails. It seemed like enough. It seemed like love. But love isn't emails and packages. Love is showing up. June 2003. I got into Portland State's art program. Full scholarship. I called Caroline to tell her and she said, "That's great. Make sure you take some business classes too. You'll need them." Not congratulations. Not, "I'm proud of you." Not, "Tell me everything." Just advice I didn't ask for. Why can't she just be happy for me without trying to fix me? Why does everything I do have to be improved or optimized or made more practical? My chest tightened. I'd meant well. I'd wanted her to be prepared, to avoid the struggling artist cliches I'd read about. But she hadn't needed career advice. She'd needed a sister who celebrated her without conditions, who could see her joy and add to it instead of immediately pointing out potential problems. The entries piled up, a chronicle of missed connections and misread intentions. Her 16th birthday when I'd given her the jade bracelet. Practical, expensive, something that would last. And she'd wanted me to take her to see a meteor shower. I'd said I had a paper due. She'd gone alone. Her college graduation when I'd sent flowers but couldn't leave work for a client presentation. She'd texted me a photo of herself in her cap and gown, alone. I'd texted back, "So proud. Sorry I couldn't make it. Call me later?" She never called. December 2008. Christmas at Mom's house. Caroline brought gifts for everyone. Expensive, tasteful things from nice stores. She gave me professional art supplies, the really good ones I've been wanting. But when I gave her my gift, a painting I'd made specifically for her, of the two of us as kids playing in the rain, she looked at it for maybe 5 seconds and said, "This is lovely. I'll find a place for it in my office." Then she set it aside and moved on to opening the next present. I spent 2 months on that painting. Tried to capture the memory of us being close, of being sisters who loved each other. She looked at it for 5 seconds. I cried in the bathroom. Mom found me and held me while I sobbed. She said Caroline loves in her own way, but what good is love I can't feel? I remembered that painting, had hung it in my office like I'd said I would, behind my desk, where clients could see it and comment on how artistic my family was. I'd used it as decoration, as proof I had a personal life. Never as a reminder of who we'd been, of what Natalie was trying to tell me through color and canvas. March 2016. Mom's diagnosis. Caroline's handling everything. Insurance, doctors, schedules. She's created spreadsheets. Spreadsheets for Mom's dying. She's so good at it. So efficient. She talks about morphine dosages and hospice options with the same tone she probably uses to discuss building codes. Meanwhile, I sit with Mom and we talk about nothing. Her garden, old movies, how the light looks through the kitchen window at 5 p.m. We laugh about stupid things. I hold her hand. I paint pictures she can barely see but says she loves because they have colors in them, because they're proof that beauty still exists even when everything is falling apart. Caroline thinks I'm avoiding responsibility, but someone needs to let Mom be a person, not a patient. Someone needs to just love her without trying to fix the unfixable. Someone needs to make her last months about living, not just about managing death efficiently. Tears burned. I'd been so certain I was helping, that my organizational skills were the gift Mom needed. I'd made her dying as painless and organized as possible, but I'd never just sat with her, never asked what she wanted to talk about, what memories mattered, what she needed beyond medical care. I'd treated her death like a project to complete successfully, and I'd missed saying goodbye to my mother. June 2016. Mom's funeral. 300 people came, everyone talking about what an amazing woman she was, how kind, how generous, how present she made people feel. Caroline stood there in her black suit, looking like she was at a business meeting, accepting condolences with perfect phrases. She didn't cry, not once, just stood there being efficient even at our mother's funeral. I wanted to shake her, wanted to scream, "Feel something, anything, show me you're human." But maybe she isn't anymore. Maybe whatever makes people capable of feeling got erased from her somewhere along the way. Maybe I lost my sister years ago and just didn't realize she was gone. But the entry that broke me, that shattered whatever defense I'd built around my heart, came from 2008. Dad contacted me, found me through Facebook, wants to meet for coffee, reconnect. I said no. Caroline doesn't know. She'd probably tell me to hear him out, to be practical about it, to consider his perspective, to not let emotion cloud judgment. But I don't want his perspective. I want to hate him for leaving. I want to be angry that he walked away and never looked back. I want someone to tell me it's okay to just feel things without analyzing them or processing them or moving past them on some efficient timeline. I want my sister back from whatever machine she turned herself into. I want the Caroline who used to sneak into my room during thunderstorms and tell me stories until I fell asleep. The Caroline who taught me to tie my shoes and promised she'd never let anyone hurt me. But that Caroline's gone, and I don't know how to mourn someone who's still alive. She'd been right. I would have said those things, would have encouraged reconciliation, emotional maturity, moving forward, because that's what I'd done. Locked away the pain of Dad's leaving, of Mom's slow death, of every loss and disappointment. I'd become armor, efficient and impenetrable, and I'd lost Natalie in the process. I'd lost myself too. The months after I sold our childhood home were silent ones. Natalie's number disappeared from my recent calls. Holidays became obligations fulfilled with greeting cards. I told myself distance was natural, that siblings grew apart, that we were adults with separate lives. But the diary showed a different story. November 2018. 5 years since I've seen Caroline. She sends Christmas cards with printed signatures and generic messages. Wishing you joy this season. Like I'm a client. Like we're strangers who happen to share DNA. I keep them anyway. Stack them in a box under my bed because even scraps of her feel precious. I'd thought I was maintaining connection. She'd felt discarded. Then came May 2019. I got engaged to David, a structural engineer I'd met at a conference. Stable, intelligent, compatible. We made sense on paper. I sent Natalie a text with the news and a formal invitation to the wedding. Her diary entry from that day. She's getting married. Texted me like she was notifying a coworker. I don't even know this man's last name. I don't know if she loves him or if he's another achievement to check off. But I bought a dress anyway. Pale blue. Her favorite color. Maybe at the wedding we'll talk. Maybe she'll need help with something and I'll be there and she'll remember we're sisters. She came to the wedding. I barely saw her. There were 300 guests. Speeches, photographs, logistics. She congratulated me in the reception line, her hug brief and stiff. I introduced her to David's parents. Said something about her being an artist. She smiled and faded into the crowd. In the diary, I left early. No one noticed. She didn't notice. I cried in my car for an hour before driving home. The dress is in my closet still. Tags ripped off, dreams attached. I'm 41 years old, and still waiting for my sister to see me. The marriage lasted 3 years. David left me for a colleague, someone who knew how to be present, who made him feel things. I'd been blindsided. I'd thought we were fine, maintaining our routines, our separate but parallel lives. I didn't call Natalie when it ended. Didn't want her pity or her, "I told you so." I filed papers, divided assets, moved to a smaller apartment. Handled it. But she knew anyway. Somehow, she always knew. January 2022. Found out through Mom's old friend Janet that Caroline's divorced. My first thought, I should call her. My second thought, what would I say that wouldn't sound like judgment? My third thought, she won't want to hear from me anyway. She never wants to hear from me unless she needs something signed or verified or handled. She was right. I wouldn't have answered. Would have sent it to voicemail. Handled my pain in private like I handled everything else. Then came last March, the final meeting about Mom's estate. 7 years after her death, the last piece of property finally sold. I drove to Portland for the lawyer's office. Signatures required. Natalie was already there when I arrived. Thinner than I remembered. Shadows under her eyes. "You look tired," I said. "I've been working a lot." She signed where the lawyer pointed, her hand shaking slightly. "Are you okay?" "Fine." Flat. Distant. A door closed. We finished the paperwork. Stood in the parking lot afterward. Afternoon sun harsh on the asphalt. I should have asked her to coffee. Should have suggested dinner. Should have done something. Instead, I said, "Well, that's everything settled." "Yes," she said, "everything's settled. Take care of yourself, Natalie." She looked at me then, really looked, and I saw something in her face I couldn't name. Later, reading her diary, I recognized it. Resignation. "You too, Caroline." She turned to leave, then stopped. "Actually, there's something I want to say." "Okay, I'm done." Her voice was quiet, each word deliberate. "I'm done hoping you'll suddenly become the sister I needed. I'm done making excuses for why you never call, never visit, never ask how I am unless it's in relation to paperwork or logistics. I'm done feeling like a checkbox on your to-do list." "Natalie, that's not—" Let me finish. Her hands clenched. "Mom used to say you loved in your own way, that you just showed it differently. But love isn't wire transfers and efficient solutions. Love is showing up. And you never show up, Caroline. Not really. So I'm done waiting." My throat closed. "I don't know what you want from me. I wanted a sister." She laughed, bitter and broken. "But you can't be something you don't know how to be. So here's what I hope. I hope you build beautiful buildings. I hope you win awards. I hope your life is everything you architected it to be." She paused, and the next words came out like glass. "And I hope you suffer the way I've suffered. I hope someday you look around and realize you're alone in all that success, and you'll understand what it feels like to love someone who doesn't know how to love you back." She walked away. I stood frozen, her words ricocheting in my skull. I told myself she was being dramatic, unfair, cruel. I never called to apologize, never reached out. I let her curse sit between us like a wall I didn't have to climb. And then she died. Her last diary entry, "Saw Caroline today," said terrible things, meant them and didn't mean them. She looked hurt, and I was glad. And then I hated myself for being glad. The truth, I only wanted her to love me. But you can't force feelings, can't architect affection. Some buildings just don't have the foundation for what you want to build. I'm 43 years old, and I need to accept that my sister is one of them. I closed the diary and bent over it, sobbing in her empty apartment, understanding too late that we'd both been suffering, and neither of us had known how to stop. I stayed in Natalie's apartment for 3 days, called in sick to work, something I'd never done, let emails pile up unanswered, sat on her floor surrounded by her paintings, and read her diary from start to finish, then started again. Every page showed me a version of myself I didn't recognize but couldn't deny. The sister who came to birthday parties but left early, who sent gifts instead of time, who listened to problems and offered solutions when all that was needed was empathy. I'd built a life on structure and control, on the belief that feelings were obstacles to efficiency. But Natalie's words dismantled that carefully constructed philosophy. Feelings weren't obstacles, they were the point. Connection wasn't a distraction from achievement. It was the only achievement that mattered. I'd been so busy building my career, my image, my perfectly organized existence that I'd forgotten to build relationships. Or maybe I'd never learned how. Maybe when Dad left, I'd decided love was unreliable, that the only thing you could count on was what you created yourself. Grades, degrees, buildings that stood because you'd calculated every stress point. But people aren't buildings. They don't follow blueprints. They require presence, patience, the willingness to exist in uncomfortable emotions without immediately trying to fix them. Natalie had tried to teach me this. Over and over, she'd extended invitations I'd declined or accepted with half my attention. She'd needed a sister who could sit in grief without organizing it away, who could celebrate joy without moderating it with practical concerns. And I'd failed her every single time. The weight of this realization pressed against my ribs. I'd spent 42 years believing I was successful, that my life was on track, that I was fine. But sitting in my dead sister's apartment, I understood. I was alone because I'd built walls and called them boundaries. I was isolated because I'd mistaken independence for strength. My phone buzzed. Work emergency. Client crisis. The old Caroline would have jumped up, grabbed her laptop, handled it immediately. Instead, I turned the phone off. Some things couldn't be handled. Some losses couldn't be organized away. Sometimes you just had to sit in the rubble and acknowledge that you'd demolished something precious without even realizing it was collapsing. I stood, my legs stiff, and walked through her apartment really seeing it for the first time. Her paintings weren't just angry abstracts. They were emotion made visible. This one, all dark blues and jagged blacks, was titled Waiting. Another, softer grays and pale pinks, was called What Sisters Could Be. A third, violent reds and oranges, bore the title The House That Died. She'd been painting us, painting me, over and over, trying to make sense of our broken connection through color and canvas. On her desk, I found sketches, studies for larger paintings maybe, but these were different. They showed two girls, figures rendered in simple lines. In one, they held hands. In another, they sat back to back. In a third, they stood on opposite sides of a door. Beneath the sketches, a folder. Inside, letters. Dozens of them, addressed to me, never sent. My hands shook as I opened the first one, dated 1995. Dear Caroline, I know you're busy with high school and your friends and everything, but I miss you. You used to play with me after school. Now you're always in your room studying, or at soccer, or somewhere else. I drew you a picture. I hope you like it. Love, Natalie. Another from 2001. Caroline, I'm sorry I cried when you left for college. I know it's stupid. I'm 15 and should be more mature. I just wish you weren't so far away. I wish I could be smart like you, so we'd have more to talk about. Write me when you have time. Love, Nat. One from 2010. See, I know I'm not good at holidays. I never know what to get you, but I made you something. It's not practical or useful, just art, but I thought about you while making it, about when we were kids and you weren't afraid to get paint on your hands. Do you remember? We made a mural on the basement wall and Mom pretended to be mad but kept it for years. I miss that version of you, the one who made messes, love, and dozens more, tracking years of reaching out, of hoping, of trying to bridge the distance I'd created. None sent, because she already knew I wouldn't respond the way she needed. The last letter was dated 2 months before she died. Caroline, I'm not going to send this. I never send these. But writing to you helps somehow, even if you'll never read it. I think I'm finally accepting that we'll never be close. It's not your fault, not really. You are who you are, and I am who I am, and those people don't fit together. But I want you to know, I never stopped loving you, even when I said I hated you, even when I wanted to stop. You're my sister. That meant everything to me. I hope it meant something to you too. Love always, Natalie. I clutched the letter, her handwriting blurring through my tears. It meant everything. It always had. I just didn't know how to show it in ways she could understand. But maybe I could learn. Maybe it was too late for Natalie, but not too late to change. Not too late to become someone who knew how to love beyond logic, who could be present instead of just productive. I gathered the diary, the letters, the photographs, took them back to Seattle with me, put them on my kitchen table where I'd see them every morning, a reminder of who I'd been and who I needed to become. For the first time in my life, I didn't have a plan, didn't know the steps or the timeline, but I knew I couldn't keep living like this, efficient and empty, successful and alone. Natalie had suffered loving me. The least I could do was suffer learning how to love properly, even if she'd never know I tried. A week after returning to Seattle, Mike the landlord called again. There was more, he said. Things he'd found while cleaning the apartment for the new tenant. Did I want them? I drove back down that weekend. He met me with 2 boxes and an apologetic expression. Found these in the storage unit, he explained. Didn't know she had one until I went through her lease paperwork. Paid up through the end of the year. Inside the first box, more letters. But these were different. These were sent, addressed to my various apartments over the years. Each one returned stamped, moved, no forwarding address or return to sender. I'd moved 5 times in the last decade, always forgetting to update my mailing address with anyone except employers and banks. Official business. Apparently family didn't qualify as official business, but Natalie had tried anyway. Had sent birthday cards and Christmas packages, gallery show invitations and postcards from trips I never knew she'd taken. All returned. All kept in a box labeled "Sent to Caroline" in her neat handwriting. The other box contained financial records, bank statements, investment papers, receipts. I spread them across my car's hood, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Natalie had money, a lot of it. Hundreds of thousands in savings, investment accounts, certificates of deposit. Her art had sold, apparently quite well. Galleries in Portland, Seattle, San Francisco, even New York. Prices ranging from $5,000 to $50,000 per piece. But she'd lived in that expensive apartment. working a gallery assistant job that barely paid rent. Why? Then I found the folder marked Donations. Inside, receipts going back years, art therapy programs for foster kids, scholarships for underprivileged students at Portland State's art school, donations to hospice programs in Mom's name, monthly contributions to homeless shelters, food banks, women's shelters. She'd been giving it away, making money from her art and giving it away to people who needed it, keeping only enough to survive in a city she loved. There was a letter paperclipped to the receipts, addressed to her estate lawyer. If something happens to me, I want everything split. Half to the charities listed here, half to Caroline. Not because she needs it, but because maybe it'll make her wonder about me for 5 minutes. Maybe she'll ask questions. Maybe she'll realize I had a life she never bothered to learn about. Or maybe she'll just deposit it and move on. Either way, I tried. She'd left me over $300,000. Money I didn't need. Money she could have used to live comfortably, to quit the gallery job, to stop worrying about rent. But that wasn't Natalie's way. She'd lived with purpose, with intention, using her gifts to help others. While I'd been climbing corporate ladders, she'd been building something that actually mattered. I found her phone next, the cracked screen somehow still functional. Mike had charged it, not knowing what else to do. I unlocked it, the passcode our childhood home address, and scrolled through her photos. Hundreds of them, her paintings in various stages of completion, sunsets over the Willamette River, coffee shop selfies with friends I'd never met, pictures of art students she'd mentored, beaming beside their first gallery pieces, and pictures of me, photos she'd clearly taken without my knowledge. Me at Mom's funeral, face blank and controlled. Me at my wedding, smiling but somehow distant. Screenshots of my firm's website, my photo beside descriptions of projects I'd led. She'd been following me, watching from a distance, still caring even after everything. Her text messages told another story. Conversations with friends where my name appeared regularly. Caroline got promoted again, partner now. I'm proud even though I know she doesn't care if I am. Saw Caroline's new building in Architectural Digest. It's beautiful. She's so talented. I wish I could tell her. Caroline's divorce is final. I want to call, but what would I say? Sorry your marriage failed? She'd just handle it efficiently like everything else. To someone named Amy. I think about calling her every day. Then I remember how it goes. She'll ask how I am. I'll tell her, and she'll immediately start problem solving. She won't just listen. She never just listens. Amy's response. Then stop calling. You can't keep breaking your own heart over someone who doesn't want to be present. Natalie, but she's my sister. That has to mean something. Amy, it should, but clearly it doesn't to her. I sat in my car reading these messages, each one a knife between my ribs. I'd been so oblivious, so caught up in my own existence that I'd missed her entire life, her success, her generosity, her continued desperate love for me. The final text exchange was with her gallery manager, dated the week before she died. I'm putting together pieces for a show, personal work, about family, about longing, about loving people who can't love you back. That's brave. Are you ready for it to be public? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe she'll never see it anyway. Maybe she will. Then maybe she'll finally understand. I called the gallery manager, a woman named Lisa, who cried when I introduced myself. She talked about you all the time, Lisa said. I honestly thought you two were close until certain things she said made it clear you weren't. The show she mentioned, did she finish it? Most of it. It was scheduled for next month. We're still planning to do it as a memorial. Would you want to see the pieces? Yes, I said, my voice cracking. I need to see them, because finally, horribly, I was ready to see Natalie, not through my narrow lens of who I thought she should be, but through her own eyes, the person she'd been, the life she'd lived, the sister she'd deserved. I spent the next 3 weeks in Portland, took a leave of absence from work, the first time I'd stepped away from my career in 20 years, rented a small apartment in the Pearl District, close to Natalie's old place, and immersed myself in her life. Lisa opened the gallery on off days so I could see Natalie's collection. The show was titled Blueprints and Brushstrokes, a clear reference to us, though Lisa said Natalie had insisted it wasn't autobiographical. She always claimed her work was universal, Lisa explained, but everyone who knew her recognized the truth. The paintings devastated me. Each one depicted two figures, always sisters, or meant to be sisters, always separated by something: walls, distance, different worlds. In one, they reached for each other across a chasm. In another, they stood back to back, facing opposite horizons. In a third, one sister was built from sharp geometric lines, while the other dissolved into watercolor chaos. The centerpiece was enormous, 7 feet tall, dominated by blues and grays. Two women, one precise and angular, one soft and flowing. The angular woman carried blueprints and tools. The soft one held paintbrushes and flowers. They were reaching for each other, fingertips almost touching, but between them stood a wall made of words. Busy. Later. I'll call you. Not now. I have to work. The title, What We Could Have Been. I stood in front of it for an hour, tears streaming, finally seeing what Natalie had been trying to tell me through paint, because I'd never listened when she used words. I met her friends, Amy, Daniel, Sophia, Marcus, people who'd loved her, supported her, been the family she'd needed when blood failed her. They were wary of me at first, protective of Natalie's memory. She never stopped talking about you, Amy said over coffee. Never stopped hoping. It killed us watching her hurt herself that way. I didn't understand, I said. I thought I was being who she needed. Practical. Solution-oriented. She didn't need solutions. She needed presence. Amy's voice was gentle but firm. She needed someone to sit with her in the hard stuff without trying to fix it. I began attending the art therapy sessions Natalie had funded, watched teenagers work through trauma with color and canvas, guided by teachers Natalie had personally sponsored. They spoke about her with reverence, this woman who'd believed in them when no one else did. Ms. Walsh said art isn't about being good, one girl told me. It's about being honest, about making your insides visible so you don't have to carry them alone. Natalie had understood something I'd spent my life avoiding. Vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was the foundation of connection. You couldn't build relationships on efficiency and logic. You had to show up messy and uncertain and willing to feel things that couldn't be controlled. I started writing. Long letters to Natalie I'd never be able to send, saying everything I should have said when she was alive. Apologies, memories, confessions. I wrote about the time I'd missed her high school art show because of an exam, the birthday I'd forgotten, the phone calls I'd cut short. Every failure, cataloged and acknowledged. I wasn't trying to absolve myself. There was no absolution for what I'd done, or hadn't done, but I was trying to understand how I'd become someone capable of loving so poorly. The answer, I realized, was fear. Dad leaving had taught me that people were unreliable, that the only safe thing was self-sufficiency. I'd made myself into a fortress, strong, impenetrable, alone, and I'd convinced myself this was maturity, when really it was just trauma I'd never processed. Natalie had felt everything. She'd risked being hurt because she believed love was worth the risk, and I'd punished her for that openness by treating her feelings as problems to solve rather than gifts to receive. I contacted the estate lawyer and set up a trust with Natalie's inheritance, continuing her donations to the programs she'd supported. I established a scholarship in her name at Portland State. I commissioned a bench in Laurelhurst Park where we'd played as children, engraved with her favorite quote from Rainer Maria Rilke. Perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses who are only waiting to see us act, just once, with beauty and courage. I couldn't give her what she'd needed while she was alive, but I could honor who she'd been, the generous, feeling, brave person who'd loved me anyway. The gallery show opened on a rainy Thursday evening. Hundreds of people attended, artists, students, community members. I stood in the corner, anonymous, and listened to them talk about Natalie Walsh, the woman who'd changed their lives through art and generosity. She saw people, someone said. Really saw them. Made you feel like you mattered. That was her gift. The gift I'd been too blind to recognize. Lisa found me near the end of the night. There's one more piece. She finished it the week before she died. I wasn't sure about including it, but I think you should see it. She led me to a small room at the back of the gallery. On the wall, a single painting. Two women, clearly sisters, sitting on a porch step. The angular one had her head on the soft one's shoulder. The soft one's hand covered the angular one's hand. Above them, a sky full of stars. The title, Hope. Beneath the painting, a placard with Natalie's handwritten note. For Caroline, who I never stopped loving, even when loving hurt. This is what I dreamed for us. This is what I still hope existed somewhere, in some version of our story where we both learned how to reach each other. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I'm sorry I left angry. I'm sorry I told you to suffer. What I meant was, I hope you learn to feel. I hope you break open. I hope you become someone who can love and be loved fully, even if it's too late for us. Be well, sister. Paint some messes. I sank to the floor in front of that painting and wept. Not quietly, not controlled, but loud and ugly and completely. Let the fortress crack. Let the grief pour out. Let myself feel every moment of loss and regret without trying to organize it away. And somewhere I thought, maybe Natalie finally saw me being present. Finally saw me feeling without fixing. Finally saw me trying. The night of the gallery show, I didn't go back to my rental apartment. I drove to Laurelhurst, to the empty lot where our childhood home had stood. The duplex that replaced it was dark, strangers sleeping in rooms that used to hold our memories. I sat on the curb and let myself remember everything I'd locked away. Natalie at 5, crying because I'd told her she was too young to play with my friends. Me at 8, teaching her to ride a bike, running beside her until she found her balance. The summer we built a fort in the backyard and slept there under stars, telling stories until Mom called us in. The way she'd looked at me when Dad left, like I was the only solid thing left in her world, and how I'd stiffened under that need, already deciding it was too much to carry. I'd been 11 years old when I chose self-preservation over connection. 11 when I decided feelings were dangerous, that the only safe thing was to be competent and controlled. And Natalie had spent the next 30 years trying to reach the sister I'd been before that choice, not understanding that girl was gone, rebuilt into something colder and more efficient. My phone rang. David, my ex-husband, probably the last person I expected to hear from. "I heard about your sister," he said. "I'm sorry, Caroline. How did you hear?" "Janet mentioned it. Your mom's friend. I ran into her at the grocery store." He paused. "Are you okay?" The old me would have said yes automatically. Instead, "No, I'm not okay. I'm devastated and angry and drowning in regret." Silence. Then, "That's the most honest thing I've ever heard you say. I'm learning. Too late, but learning." "It's not too late," he said gently. "It's just late." We talked for an hour. Really talked. Maybe for the first time in the 7 years we'd known each other. He told me how lonely our marriage had been, how he'd felt like he was living with a beautiful, efficient robot, how he'd wanted to reach me but didn't know how. "I tried to tell you," he said, "but you'd just fix whatever logistical problem I mentioned, and miss the emotional one completely." "I know. I did that to everyone, especially Natalie. I always liked Natalie. She was so warm, so present. I used to wonder how you two were related." The words stung, but they were fair. She was everything I should have been. "No," David said firmly. "She was who she was. You're learning to be who you should be. There's a difference." After we hung up, I drove to the address Lisa had given me, the storage unit where Natalie had kept her earlier works. I had the key now, along with everything else that was hers. The unit was small, packed with canvases in protective wrap. I pulled them out one by one, unwrapping years of her artistic evolution. Her college pieces were raw, angry, clearly working through Dad's absence and Mom's exhaustion. Her mid-20s work softened, showing hope and beauty alongside pain. But tucked in the back, wrapped in multiple layers, I found a series from her 30s, a progression of paintings, all of the same scene, 2 girls holding hands. In the first, they were young, maybe 7 and 10, smiling. In the second, slightly older, 1 girl was pulling away. In the third, they were teenagers, standing apart, the space between them growing. Each subsequent painting showed them older, the distance greater, until the final one. 2 middle-aged women on opposite sides of the canvas, their backs to each other, the space between them filled with nothing but white. Empty, painful white. This series wasn't in the show. Too personal, maybe. Too revealing. But I understood them completely. They were the truth of us, the gradual dissolution of connection neither of us knew how to stop. I took them to my rental apartment, hung them on the walls in order, forced myself to look at them every day, to witness what I'd let happen. But I also found something else in the storage unit, a A canvas face down, newer than the others, paint still slightly tacky. I turned it over. The same two women, but this time they were reaching for each other. The space between them was smaller. One woman, the angular one, clearly me, had paint on her hands, was trying. The soft one, Natalie, was helping her, showing her how to blend colors, how to make messes that became beautiful. It was unfinished, the background barely sketched, details missing, but the intention was clear: reconciliation, hope that we'd find our way back to each other. She'd been painting us a future even while accepting we might not have one. I sat with that painting for hours, understanding finally that Natalie hadn't given up on me. She'd been realistic about who I was, hurt by my limitations, but still holding space for the possibility that I might change. And I had to change, not to earn her forgiveness. That was impossible now, but because living the way I'd been living wasn't living at all. It was just efficient existing, and efficiency was a poor substitute for meaning. I started therapy, found a woman named Dr. Reeves, who specialized in attachment and grief. She didn't let me intellectualize my feelings or organize them into neat categories. She made me sit in the discomfort, feel the full weight of my losses. "You built walls to protect yourself from abandonment," she said. "But walls keep people out and you trapped inside. You're mourning your sister, but you're also mourning all the years you spent isolated behind those walls. How do I stop?" You don't stop the feelings. You let them exist. You learn that feeling grief or fear or even joy doesn't destroy you. It makes you human. So I practiced being human, cried in grocery stores, called old friends I'd lost touch with, and admitted I'd been a terrible friend. Apologized to David for being a terrible wife. Showed up to the art therapy sessions not as a donor, but as a participant, making messy paintings about loss and regret. It was excruciating. Every day, I wanted to retreat to the safety of control and efficiency. But I kept seeing Natalie's paintings, kept reading her diary entries, kept hearing her voice. I only wanted her to love me. I was learning, finally. Horribly late, but learning. 3 months after Natalie died, I made a decision that would have been unthinkable to the old Caroline. I quit my job, gave notice at the firm, sold my Seattle apartment, moved to Portland, rented a loft in the Pearl District, 2 blocks from where Natalie had lived. The partners at Morrison and Webb thought I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had, or maybe I'd finally found it. I still did architectural work, but differently. Took freelance projects that mattered, designing a new wing for the art therapy center Natalie had funded, creating affordable housing with community spaces that brought people together instead of isolating them in efficiency apartments, buildings that served people instead of impressing them, structures built for connection, not just aesthetics. I learned Natalie's friends, had dinners with Amy and listened without offering solutions, went to gallery openings with Sophia and let her explain art to me, even though I understood technical aspects better, because the point wasn't my knowledge, it was her passion. I volunteered at the art therapy center, not teaching but supporting, sitting with kids as they painted through trauma, offering presence instead of advice, learning that sometimes healing required nothing more than witness. And I wrote to Natalie, long letters detailing my days, my struggles, my small victories. I kept them in a journal I decorated with her style, messy, colorful, alive, not apologizing anymore, just sharing my life the way she'd always wanted. The gallery kept blueprints and brushstrokes up for 6 months. It became something of a pilgrimage for anyone who'd felt unloved by someone they loved. I visited often, standing in front of hope, until I memorized every brushstroke. One afternoon, a young woman approached me there. "Did you know her? The artist?" She was my sister. Her eyes widened. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Her work, it saved my relationship with my sister. We hadn't spoken in 5 years. I was so busy with my career, and she kept trying to reach me and I kept putting her off. Then she sent me a link to this show with just one line. 'This is us. Please see it.' Did you come?" I did, and I saw it. Really saw what I'd been doing. She smiled through tears. "We had dinner last week, 4 hours, just talking. It's going to take time, but we're trying." I hugged her, this stranger. "Keep trying. Don't stop trying." Because that was Natalie's gift. Not just her art, but what it could do. Make people see their own disconnections and inspire them to do better while they still had time. The trust I'd established grew. More scholarships, more programs, a permanent space for art therapy that I designed. We called it the Natalie Walsh Center for Creative Connection. At the opening, I gave a speech, talked about my sister, about how I'd failed her, about the lessons she'd taught me through her absence. I didn't hide behind professional composure. I cried in front of 300 people. Natalie believed art made the invisible visible, I said. She believed in vulnerability as strength, in feeling as courage, in love as the work that matters most. I spent my life believing the opposite. I thought feelings were obstacles. I thought efficiency was excellence. I thought I was fine. I paused. I wasn't fine. I was alone. The saddest part is I didn't have to be. My sister was reaching for me for 37 years, and I kept my hands busy with blueprints. I held up her diary. She left me this. In it, I found the truth about what matters. Not achievements or accolades, just showing up for people, being present, loving imperfectly but consistently. I looked at her painting, Hope. It's too late for us, but it's not too late for you. If you have someone you love who you've been putting off, someone who needs your presence, not your productivity, reach out. Today. Now. Don't wait until you're standing at their funeral realizing you never really knew them. That night, I went home to my loft surrounded by Natalie's paintings, put on jazz she'd loved and let myself cry for the 1,000th time. But this time, the tears felt different. Not just grief, but gratitude. I opened my journal and wrote, Dear Natalie, today I designed a building where people will learn to feel. I think you'd like that. Your friend Amy told me something yesterday. She said you used to say that love isn't something you do perfectly. It's something you do persistently. You loved me persistently, even when I made it impossible. I didn't deserve that. But I'm going to honor it by learning how to love that way myself. I'm sorry I chose work over you, efficiency over empathy, blueprints over brushstrokes. I'm sorry I didn't understand that you only wanted me to love you. I did love you. I just didn't know how to show it. But I'm learning. For you. Because of you. I hope wherever you are, you can see me trying. Love always, Caroline. I looked at the unfinished painting, the one where we were reaching for each other, where I had paint on my hands and she was teaching me. Tomorrow, I'd call a painter I'd met at the center, ask her to teach me, not because I'd ever be an artist like Natalie, but because I wanted to learn her language. I'd learn to make messes, learn to create without controlling, learn to express feelings I couldn't organize. It was too late for us, but it wasn't too late for me to become the person she'd always believed I could be. Outside my window, Portland glittered in the darkness, millions of lives intersecting, connecting. Somewhere in that tapestry, Natalie's legacy continued, in the artists she'd funded, the kids she'd inspired, the paintings that made people choose to do better, and in me, finally, desperately, too late, but still trying, in me. I raised my glass to her painting. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for leaving me the map to find my way home. Thank you for being my sister, even when I didn't know how to be yours. Then I prayed, to whatever might be listening, that Natalie knew, that somehow she understood her words had finally reached me. I only wanted her to love me. I know, Natalie. I know, and I'm learning how.